For this video, I'm going to talk about how I rigged the birds. Now, most commonly we use Rigify to do biped characters, but you can also shift A, armature, animals, and bird. You can find armatures for birds such as this one. It results that this imported model was too big, so I'm going to compare it to Suzanne's head size. I always do this whenever I import packages, 3D models from other packages, because I don't really know what the size of the world was when it was created. So Suzanne's head always helps me to understand relations concerning sizes here in Blender. So what we want to do, again, just like we did before, is to delete all of the bones that are not going to be used. In this case, I'm not going to be folding the wings. The birds are just going to be standing there, but we do need to fix the legs. So in this case, we're going to delete one half of the body, just like before. We are in edit mode. We are editing the meta rig. Okay. The meta rig is in charge of creating, obviously, the controllers for the rig. And in this case, we want to adapt as best as possible because this model was not created with Rigify in mind. We get that. So let's just adapt the fingers by switching to normals, just like we mentioned before. This way, all of the bones are going to be pointing at one direction only and not to local direction or global direction, which are kind of messy when you want to twist them and orient them. So let's resize this. Doesn't matter how you place them as long as the joints are together. This we mentioned before in the previous video where we rigged the Cupid character. So as long as the joints are together, the script should run with no problem. Now, I want to narrate some of the experiences that I have whenever I bring from another Blender scene to a new scene any kind of Rigify rigs, because as you already know, they have controls for the head, for the body, for the torso, secondary controllers, facial controllers, and all of that is included in one script that gets recorded inside the Blender. And you have to switch to the script tab in order for you to find it. It's the only, I think it's called rig.py, and you should press the run button, which is represented by the little play button right beside the text block icon. So you need to switch your interface to script, and in case you don't see your controllers on the interface in Blender 2.9 or above, make sure that you switch to script and then find rig.py and then press play to execute that script, and that will regenerate actually all of your controllers. So with that taken in acquaintance, let's continue to do the bird over here. So this is most likely the bones for the neck. Of course, it's going to be driven with special attention so that the wings do not collide. But since we do not have wings, we only need to worry about this half of the body. So select all of these bones and make sure everything is in place as I think it looks like. Then right click, symmetrize, and then it will automatically create the bones for the other side of the body. And with that, step 1 is already done, which is editing the size, the correct size for this little bird. Now I'm going to press generate the rig, and as you can see, the rig came into its own original size, but I need it to be just a little bit smaller, so I'm going to scale it in object mode, and then you can press Ctrl A, apply scale, so all of the controllers are set correctly. Now I noticed that this little bird had a lot of polygons. Okay, so I'm using the remesh modifier to cut out some of the polygons that you have right there. And then finally I decided to use the unsubdivide mode because somebody that sold this model applied the subdivision surface times 2. So as you can imagine, that would have been a lot of work to do weights or to animate, because it would be a very heavy object. But right now, since it's been optimized. Now we can bind it, or we can do proper weights on it. So I'm going to select the mesh, and then I'm going to select the rig, and then Control P, select automatic weights. Switch back your local pivot from normal to local so that you can transform all of your bones correctly. Now we can grab this box, which is the center of mass for the body. We can see that Rigify did an excellent job out of the box by creating the correct controllers, even the deformers for the fingers, as you can see. The claws just manipulate perfectly, and this bird only had one purpose, which was to open the scene, the love scene, like the love of birds, that is commonly associated with Cupid as well. So we did this rig, we rigged this bird, and consequentially we wanted this bird to have certain parts driven by IK and some other parts driven by forward kinematics, or FK. Now, one thing I recommend a lot is that whenever you're working with your rig and you parent it, and then you have your weights already created, please make sure that your rig is light enough so that you can move it across the screen without any kind of lag. If you have lag at this basic level of subdivision on your model, please unbind or unweight your model and try to fix everything before doing weights. Otherwise, your model and your scene will be very heavy to animate, and you don't want that. What you want to do is to optimize all of the models that you haven't seen, even visible models, because that also tends to make Blender go a little bit slower. So everything that you do not need at the moment of animating, please hide it, okay? Blender will run much faster. So what I'm doing right here is to work a little bit with the UV. So I did the unwrapping all over again, because the original unwrap, because I deleted some of the things in the model, got messed up. So I re-unwrapped it, and now I'm adapting all of the UV islands to the UV maps that they sent. So I'm doing all the cuts by a very estimate or guesstimate approach, and I'm separating the islands here. Now please bear in mind that this is a very old Blender version. I think this was 282, and we did not have enough UV tools at the moment like we have right now in 290 something, but the stitching, as you can see right here, works like a charm. You can bring the parts, the separate islands, and then you can grab the edges of both islands and then press the stitching command, and then you have to left click twice, once to pre-visualize and the second time to accept the stitching, and you can even manipulate it further. And here I'm finishing the textures so that they will look blended together, because the seams were too noticeable, very much noticeable in this little bird. Alright, so we have him ready. It looks good. Basically it's not going to do much except by moving the torso and some parts of the legs. So I think this is a good model as it is now. So we re-rigged this, we re-UV'd this little guy. Let's check him out if everything is okay. No UV seams, everything looks just fine. And even though we are working with a cartoony approach, this little bird will just be somewhere around 120 frames on the movie, and that's all. So we did not do an extensive work on this guy. So if you want to file, append, and bring this little guy over a new Blender file, you will find that he brings everything within the rig. So you can import the rig in a brand new file in Blender, and every controller will work as expectedly. So now we need to make the copy, or rather his soulmate. Okay, let's bring the second bird. Again, I'm going to re-import the same rig bird, and Blender what it's going to do is to assign a .001. That's what Blender does for every duplicated material or mesh or data set. So I'm going to rename these collections as bird male and bird female. Okay, let's switch this off and let's move the bird female somewhat to the right. Okay, let's place her here, and then let's activate the other bird. Now if I select it and then go to pose mode, pressing tab, go to pose mode, you can see that this bird is exactly doing what we want him to do. That's perfect. What about the other bird? Let's get out of that mode. Let's go to the female bird. Yes, this was the version where you cannot click another rig and then you will not jump into pose mode. So how far have we come? Nowadays you can click another rig and it will automatically jump into pose mode. So that's the advantage. You don't have to switch back and forth from mode. So here we go. You have two birds and ready to go for animation.